I'm here with Les Nicholson at the Artisan Bakehouse in Ashurst, and what a beautiful place it is. It's a lovely location. So, Les, what are you going to cook for us today?
Today we're going to make wholemeal sourdough pizza.
Okay, so there's been a real interest in sourdough lately. People have had a bit more time on their hands, and time is one of the things with sourdough that you really need. And so, but turning it into a pizza, now that's a new thing for me.
Yeah, well it's fairly trendy in terms of the normal sort of white flour pizza, but not so with wholemeal. So we thought we'd try something different because today we want to use some local grain and consequently some local flour.
So I hear that the grain is grown very locally.
Yep, just next door.
And do you mill it yourself?
Well, we do. Yes, we've got a little chap here that we can use, which it's a miniature version of a mill. It's got two small granite stones inside, and it's quite an efficient little chap, and you get quite a good little volume through. You can't do kilos and kilos of it, but you can do enough to do a bit of spot of baking here and there. Okay,
so the flour for pizzas is normally a very fine grind, and it has a high protein content, doesn't it?
Yes, it does, yeah, because you want that sort of stretchiness in the pizza, so you have a little bit more gluten in it, and this has actually got a really good gluten content. It's about 14%, right. So it's absolutely perfect for pizzas. Okay, so today we're going to make wholemeal pizza, and what we've got here, we've got some wheat germ or wheat grain, as it's known, and or sometimes known as wheat berries. It's grown next door locally by Simon and Mandy Killam at Guess's Farm, farming on the Whiston estate. And it's a variety of wheat called Zayat. So what we're going to do is just going to mill a little bit of it here so that we can use it in our pizza mix. I'm just going to put a few handfuls of grain into the mix. This has got granite stones inside, so it's just a miniature version of a water mill or a windmill, but it's a little bit noisy. So there we go. So and it's actually quite it's quite warm.
Oh, it is, isn't it? And is this quite a fine grind?
Yeah, actually, yeah, it is. We've actually got a gauge on the side. And it goes from coarse, you can have it coarser if you wanted to, but obviously for the pizzas we want to try and get it as fine as we possibly can, so this grinds it pretty fine. It's not quite as fine as white flour, but as you can see it's still,
it feels very good.
Yeah, and it's filled nice and soft, and it's got a really lovely taste to it as well.
So is this your sourdough starter?
Yeah, well, yeah, this is actually what we call a pre-ferment. So last night what I did was I took 70 grams of sourdough starter, and I mix a little bit of water and some flour with it, and that way overnight it just can get itself going. And you can see that there's some little bubbles and things on here, so you know that it's the sourdough's doing its job. You can smell it, yeah. So there's a really sort of soury sort of smell, by having the pre-ferment overnight, you can just enrich the taste of the and it just it makes all the enzymes and the acids start to develop, so you get a longer process, because obviously with sourdough you want to try and eke out the time as far as you possibly can.
I have to admit that I have been trying to make sourdough recently and I've had assorted disasters. Right. So any tips you've got, I'm all ears, because I know it is a skill, and I know you need lots of patience and time, but also this sort of these clues as to how to get a really good result is really helpful.
Well, you need a pretty robust starter to start with. So and a sourdough starter is just simply water and flour added together, mix it up, and then you gradually build it up day after day, and as you go through you should see it becoming more and more lively, and by that I mean you should see more and more bubbles, and then by about day 5, day 6 it should be really quite lively and bubbly, and then you know it's just about ready to use in a loaf and to get mixed into some dough, and then a sourdough loaf is the simplest loaf that you can have. It's just flour, water and salt. and nothing else really, and that's what we've got today.
Make it sound very easy.
Well, it takes a little bit of time, and it does, as you say, it does take a lot of patience.
I think that's where I've been falling down. I've been trying to speed things along and being a bit impatient with it, but
yeah. So we've got our wholemeal flour in there and our sourdough starter, and what we're going to do now is we're going to build it up to make our pizza. So I've got another 150 grams of wholemeal flour in there and a little bit of water.
And this is just room temperature water.
Yeah, just room temp. Yeah, you don't need nothing too warm. Just a little bit of. And then I'm just going to bring the dough together. Just going to add a little bit of salt in. We don't put salt in overnight because that inhibits the process a little bit. So we leave the salt out and then just put it in here.
I think the pre-ferment bit is the bit I've been missing out on actually.
Yeah, I mean you don't always have to, but it does help to sort of enrich the flavour a little bit. So.
I mean, some bakers or bakeries have sourdough starters that are sort of 20 years old. I mean, is there any benefit to all of that, or does it make any difference really?
I suspect there's not much left after 20 years of the original. Yeah, in fact, I had a Polish guy once. He was a former baker, and he came up and he said, "This is a 200-year-old starter."
Really? Really?
But yeah, I don't. No, I think you'll find that people just. I mean, what a lot of people do is just tend to use a bit, discard a bit, and add it in. Mm-hmm. But so over time, it's obviously not the same thing. But people do like to keep it going. And they give it names as well. Quite often people give their starters names.
Yes, I have a friend who's got a starter called Doris.
Oh, right.
Doris is very lively, so I'm told.
So we've got our mix now, and what we just leave it for about 10 minutes so that the water gets really nicely absorbed into the flour. You always need a little bit more water when you're dealing with wholemeal because of the bran and the fibre. It absorbs more water. So unlike a sort of a white flour recipe, you'd probably have to go a much higher percentage of water to flour.
Yeah, I mean, when I've been following sourdough recipes, it seems to be they're quite a wet mix. It's
yes.
got a lot of water, and it's sort of sticky.
Yes, it's always sticky.
It's meant to be sticky.
It's meant to be
okay.
sticky. Yeah. I mean, one of the major problems that people have when they first start making bread, and they say, "Oh, my bread comes out like a brick." It's quite often because they make up the dough, they think it's too sticky, and they can't knead it. And so they chuck some more flour at it. Oh. And then, of course, that changes the hydration of the dough. And the hydration of the dough is the ratio of water to flour.
And it's critical, is it?
Absolutely, yeah. You need a well-hydrated dough. So, if you put more flour in, then that will take the percentage down. And you'll get a more sort of dense...
You're just explaining all the things I've been doing wrong, actually.
Okay, so we'll leave that then for 10 minutes. So today we're going to use a technique called stretch and fold in the bowl to knead the dough. So we won't be smearing it all over the work surface. It's still a little bit sticky, which it will be, but I'm going to get a little bit of olive oil. My fingers, just stop it sticking to my fingers. And stretch and fold in the bowl is a way of developing the gluten. So we just take a little portion of dough here, lift up and pull it over to the front and press down, turn the bowl slightly and repeat. So we're going to work our way around the bowl, just pulling the dough over. And this is stretching the gluten in different ways. So we work around the bowl. We do this about 10 times. And what we're going to do is we're going to do this on 4 separate occasions. So we're going to leave it for about 10 minutes each time. So as we move it around the bowl, you can just see that the dough is just slightly getting a little bit smoother. So that's the first one. So we'll pop that, we'll pop a cover on it. and we're going to leave that for 10 minutes and then we'll do the second one. So we're going to do 4 of these in total to fully develop the gluten. So we've now done 4 stretch and folds in the bowl for this dough, and so now we can leave it to do its own thing. But obviously with sourdough, you've only got really small amounts of wild yeast in the dough, so it's going to take quite a long time for it to develop. So we're probably going to leave this now for about 6 or 7 hours, something like that, while it really starts to do its thing. When you use a commercial yeast, there's far more yeast than there is with sourdough, only smaller amounts of wild yeast, and so it's going to take a lot longer. But the wild yeast in there will search out the sugars in the flour, and they'll create carbon dioxide, and gradually you'll start to see the loaf develop. Okay, so here we are several hours later, and the dough is really nicely risen, so you can see there, and you can see lots of little bubbles and everything. Yeah. So it's about ready now. So do you want to give me a hand and
I'll give it a go.
A little bit? Okay, so we need some dusting flour. So we're just going to, this is the best way, just a light dusting of flour. And then we're going to turn the dough out using the dough scraper. Okay, so what we're going to do is just tease the dough out a little bit into a sort of a rough, smallish square. Yeah. Okay, and then go to one corner, just lift that corner up and push it into the centre, and then the other corner into the centre like that.
Oh, the wrong
that's
side.
it. No, it doesn't matter. There you go, that way. And then that way, so you've got a smaller square, and then we're going to repeat it again, just pull it in over all the 4 corners. Okay, and we're going to flip the dough over, the dough scraper, and then with a sort of cutting motion with your thing, you just, there you go, you've got your ball of dough. So what we'll do now is we will put a bit of dusting flour on here. Pop it in there, pop yours next to it. There we go, I'm just going to cover that up and we'll leave it for about half an hour.
Okay.
That just allows the gluten to relax a bit and it make it easier for us to roll out. All right, so we're going to make the tomato sauce now. For the, I mean, we can't call it passata because passata is just purely tomatoes. So, but we're going to make a tomato sauce. We've got some beautiful tomatoes, classic vine tomatoes from Nutbourne,
Yeah.
and a red onion, and some garlic cloves.
And by roasting it, it intensifies the flavour.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and it also helps bring out the sweetness in the tomatoes as well. And also the other thing, by roasting it, you can use the whole of the tomato. So quite a lot of tomato sauce recipes tell you to sort of hull the tomatoes, and it's such a waste.
You lose all the goodness.
Yeah,
don't
you do. Yeah, cool. These smell absolutely fabulous. Right, so what we're going to do is I'm just going to take this little bit out here. But we're just going to put them in the pan.
So you're just cutting them into, taking the little
just
hard bit.
there's that little hard bit out. So
and then chopping them into sort of
just
each
into
half into 4.
Into 4, yeah. Okay, so we're just going to do the same thing with these arms, really. Just
but it's appreciation as well of the difference of what good food and made
absolutely,
with a bit of time and a bit of love, and it's
and then we've got some
make all the difference.
Some garlic cloves here as well, which we're just going to chuck in whole.
Oh, okay. So you've peeled them, but
they're peeled.
Just, okay.
They're peeled. We're just going to chop them in whole like that, and then we're going to be nice and generous with the olive oil. we go. And then we might as well pop them in the wood oven. So they'll be in there for about 15 minutes, 15-20 minutes or so. I think tomatoes are ready now, so should we get them out of the oven?
Oh, delicious.
Got some basil here. So we're just going to pick some lovely fresh basil, pop that in. So we're going to pop this into the blender. Make sure we've got every last drop. Pop the lid on and give it a blitz. Don't have to go too fine, so that should be fine. Okay. There you go, have a smell of that.
Oh, goodness. It's amazing, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
It's the, I mean, it's just those vegetables and with some, well, I think it's with the olive oil. It makes it, I think we makes it the Mediterranean diet,
Yeah, it does.
doesn't it? It's very good for you.
It gives it a Mediterranean twist. Right, okay, so I think our doughs are ready to roll out now if you're want to have a crack at it.
I'll give it a go.
So get your dough, just get your dough scraper like that, and then got some semolina flour this time, so it's a little bit coarser, and the dough will pick that up and give it a little bit of extra texture. Okay, so pop it on there. So just fold it in and then flip it over, and then get it into a nice tight bowl. And then what we're going to do, Hilary, is we're going to roll these out. Okay, you might need to put some more flour on the top. We're going to roll these out in a sort of rough oval shape so they can go onto the board. Okay. So you've got so just with a very light pressure. Use the dough scraper to make sure it doesn't stick on the board. You might want to drizzle a little bit on top of the dough as well, which will give it a bit of extra texture. Stop the roller from sticking. So we're just rolling the dough out really gently, trying to just stretch it.
Mine doesn't look quite as pretty as yours.
Don't worry. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to then
I've got a hole in mine.
Semolina, give it heavy semolina on the board, and then just transfer the dough gently onto the board. This is the nature of wholemeal, so it's a little bit more difficult to work with. Make sure there are no holes in your dough, so otherwise the tomato sauce will seep through. So we're just going to have we've got our tomato sauce now. So we've got one of these, Hilary, which is called a spoodle.
A spoodle?
It's a cross between a spoon and a ladle.
It's great, isn't it?
And it's perfect for pizzas because it's properly measured for a 12-inch pizza. So you can just scoop up a ladle of that and then pop it on, and it's got the flat base.
Oh, what a brilliant thing. Mine's got, I'm still trying to mend the holes in mine.
So don't go to the edge, so go to like a couple of centimetres to the edge, so leave a little bit of space around. And then today, what I thought we'd do today is we've got some more local ingredients here. We've got some wild garlic cured ham from Storrington. We've got some Sussex soft goat's cheese. And a little bit earlier I caramelised some onion, so goat's cheese and caramelised onion and wild garlic go really well together. So, and the important thing with pizza obviously is you get nice and thin, so these little bits of ham are absolutely perfect for just pulling off, and then you can just tease little bits off onto the pizza. Now this is the sticky bit, a little bit of... So we're just going to use goat's cheese today. We're not going to put any mozzarella or anything out on it, but we're just going to dabble a little bit of caramelised red onion. The caramelised onion that we've got here today, I made earlier. I just thinly sliced a red onion, had some light brown, sprinkled it with light brown sugar, and some balsamic glaze, and then just cooked it in the oven for about 20 minutes, 25 minutes. I'm just going to just stoke the fire up again, get that going, so we get a little bit more heat into it, so the floor's nice and hot. Okay, now some goat's cheese. So just put a few. It's good to use the soft one rather than the harder one because it has a rind on it, which isn't so good. So this is totally soft, and you can be as generous as you want with it. When we have the cafe open, we quite often do a caramelised red onion and goat's cheese tart for lunch. Okay, so there they are. So now we just need to get them in the oven.
Okay.
So just get the peel underneath, shuffle it on, and then into the oven. So the wood-fired oven, it weighs about 350 kilos. It's made of refractory concrete. It's handmade. We've had it for 8 years now.
And what sort of temperature does it get up to?
Well, it gets up to some huge temperatures. At the moment, it's about 400 degrees in there. Right, Hilary, let's get yours out first.
Slightly eccentric edged mine, but they look amazing.
And then let's finish it off with a few basil leaves, shall we?
So Les, if people haven't got a wood-fired oven in their shed outside or in their garden, what sort of temperature would you do it?
Well, just ramp up your oven up as hot as you can possibly get it. And if you can buy a pizza stone or a piece of stone, put that in the oven when you first switch it on, give it about 40 minutes, 50 minutes.
And cook it directly on the stove.
And then cook it directly on the stove.
And then you'll get this same sort of crispy effect.
There we go. And nice drizzle of olive oil to finish. Voila.
Well, these pizzas look absolutely fantastic, and we're going to go over to Luke now from the Horsham Cellar, who's going to suggest some drinks to serve with them.
Okay, so to pair with Artisan Bakehouse's goat's cheese and cured ham pizza, I've selected this delicious white wine from the Albourne estate, which is based just outside Henfield, right here in West Sussex. It's a family-owned and run vineyard. They have their own winery. They grow all of their own grapes for their own wines. They produce both still and sparkling. And for me, they produce some of the best still wines in England, in fact. The estate selection that we've chosen to go with the pizza is a blend of their top parcels of 4 of the white grapes that they grow. So it's a blend of Pinot Blanc, Pinot Gris, Ortega and Bacchus. And all of the little nuances you get from those 4 different grape varieties and the different flavours will pair nicely with the different elements of the pizza dish. So the first things about English white wines is they tend to be crisp, nice acidity, mouth-watering, refreshing styles, and that sort of style does tend to go well with tomato-based dishes. Tomatoes are very acidic, so if you've got a pizza with a nice fresh tomato sauce on it, that's a good start. There's also goat's cheese on this pizza. Sauvignon Blanc as a grape is traditionally a fantastic match with goat's cheese. The Bacchus element of this particular wine is not dissimilar to Sauvignon Blanc. Bacchus is kind of England's answer to Sauvignon Blanc. So the crisp, citrusy, elderflowery character from the Bacchus will pair beautifully with the goat's cheese element. Then the sort of the racy acidity and the tropical richness you get from the Pinot Gris and the Pinot Blanc will carry the sort of the fattiness of the cured ham beautifully. But ultimately, it's a really delicious white, and it will pair perfectly with the pizza. You just need a sunny day, a slice of pizza, and a glass of Albourne Estate selection, and it'll be superb. So this is the Albourne Estate selection to pair with Artisan Bakehouse goat's cheese and cured ham pizza. It's available from here at the Horsham Cellar, or indeed direct from the vineyard if you're in that area and fancy a tour of the winery and the estate for £16.99 a bottle. Thank you.